The Mac Mini M4 Pro is arguably Apple's most compact powerhouse to date. Think about this for a second. An M4 chipset in a box is essentially 5x5. Now, for those like myself who grew up in the era of Commodore 64s and Apple IIs and IIes and all that stuff, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. And the fact that Apple's done it, I mean, wow. However, bringing us back to 2025, they just announced the Mac Studio M4 Max. Now, I've got the M2 Max version right here, so not the M4 Max, but I've got the MacBook Pro. And the base configuration of that Mac Studio, compared to the price point of this M4 Pro, it's kind of like Apple clipped the wings of this Mac Mini M4 Pro version. So if you're kind of on the fence, which one do you go for? We're going to find out in this video. Let's get down to it. Now, this is kind of a long-term review on this product as well, because I've had this for the past 4 months, and I didn't want to rush out and just do a video saying what a lot of other people were saying is I get the $599 M4 version. It's a great buy, and it is. I mean, you think about that for a second. An M4 chipset in a size like this for $600 is unreal. Now, last year when I attended the iPad event in the UK, and they announced this product, the iPad Pro, with an M4 chipset this thin. I mean, we were like, what? The power that this has is unreal for an iPad. And then they came out with the iMac, of course, and the Mac Mini. And you know, it's more power efficient. It's better performance. I mean, this is unreal. Then you got the M4 Pro version, which is essentially a mini Mac Studio. I mean, mind is blown, right? And for this past 4 months, I mean, this has been my daily driver, and I've been comparing it a little bit to my MacBook Pro M4 Max, which is spec'd out, and I have been blown away. Now, let me tell you about what my configuration is here. It is a 14-core CPU, 20-core GPU, 64 gigabytes of unified memory, and 4 terabytes of storage. This is it, folks. Maxed out around $3,399 USD. As I mentioned, it's a mini Mac Studio. And I went with this because I'm like, let's push this. Let's see what it's about. And I'm using Final Cut for my editing. I'm using DaVinci Resolve for color grading, and I'm doing some, I do noise reduction in there at times. I'm doing some face refinement sometimes when people's skin or even my skin doesn't look so great, I need to get rid of some pimples, clear it all up. It works great, looks flawless. And then I do a lot of photo editing. As you know, on this channel, I'm doing cameras and gear and all that stuff. So I'm doing photo editing on Photoshop and Lightroom, Capture One, DxO Raw. I'm using Topaz Denoise and Topaz AI. I'm playing around with so much software, Luminar, all that stuff, right? And I push my machines quite a bit. M4s I can get by with, and they're really good machines for my day-to-day tasks. But when I get into more of the creative stuff, an M4 Pro, M4 Max is really where my sweet spot is at. And this has been an amazing machine for me throughout my journey. Unbelievable. Now, of course, if I'm going to be shooting on a RED camera, which I do sometimes through my friends, and I'm going to be processing those files, this may not be the machine I go to. I want to go for my M4 Max MacBook Pro, okay? So keep that in consideration depending on your workflow. And if I want to get into more 3D stuff, I'm going for the Max. But for, I would say about 80 to 90% of users out there, this is going to be your sweet spot. This is going to be where you want to live because there's so much potential in here. And there's future proofing in this as well. And that's very important, especially in this day and age we're going to talk about in just a second. But that's kind of how I've been using this machine. And I mean, I was in Malaysia last December. I was shooting a movie out there. I think I mentioned in a couple of videos before that. And I actually brought this with me. I put it in my backpack. It was so easy. Just popped it into my camera bag in one of the slots, just packed the power cable and the brick and HDMI cable, and off I went. That was it. I was ready to go. And I went into my hotel room. Didn't have the best TV, 1080 TV, old, probably 7, 8 years old, who knows. But at an HDMI port, HDMI to HDMI, I got the Mac experience. Now, not 4K, right? But I've got the Mac experience. Apple TV in here. It's like an Apple TV as well. Can watch my shows, watch my movies. Then I've got my trackpad. I got my keyboard. I'm editing photos and videos in my hotel room. How cool is that? You can go on a plane with this as well. As a matter of fact, you don't even need your own display. You can use a TV as I mentioned, but you can even go further. If you want to have some fun with this, connect it up to your Apple Vision Pro. And you're saying, but how do you do that? Set it up for auto login so you don't have to log in every time you power it on. Power on the device. Wait a minute, you'll hear the chime. Go on to Apple Vision Pro. Look for your, your desktop respectively, or your MacBook Pro. You'll see the Mac Mini. Connect, ultra wide display, Mac Mini. You're in business. Now, you might be saying, Bobby, Apple Vision Pro is expensive. Not everybody has an Apple Vision Pro and a Mac Mini. Okay, fair enough. Let's bring it down a bit. X-Real 1 augmented reality glasses. I did a video on that recently. Great glasses, $500-$600. So basically, they're an extended display from your product, your phone, your laptop, your computer. You can do all that. Plug it in. Same thing. USB-C. Plug it in. Auto login. Wait a minute. There's your display. You now have a display in your glasses. You got your keyboard. You got your trackpad or mouse, however you want to play with it, and you've got a full experience. And it's very compact. And when you're done, throw it into your backpack, and off you go to your next destination. And it's super light. Arguably, it's lighter than my MacBook Pro M4 Max. That's how cool this is. So that's what makes this machine so unique. And over this past 4 months, I just have enjoyed using it. Now, in my setup here, I've got this Oracle Data Matrix, which this sits on top of, and this gives me more storage because I got 4 terabytes, which is good, but I have a lot of backup. All my videos, my YouTube videos, photos that I've taken, I've got 20, 30, 40,000 images that are backed up, right? So I've got a total of 10 terabytes here. Then I've got my G drive here, which is 18 terabytes. I got a Zima Cube underneath my desk, which is 20 terabytes as well. I got a lot of storage hooked up to this. But this data matrix is cool because I've got a CF Express Type B card slot, a UHS 2 card slot, and I got a mini SD card slot for my action cameras or Pocket 3. I've got all that in here, plus more ports. So on my desktop, I've got everything I need. It's essentially like an extended Mac Studio because this is obviously too small, and we decided to put off this for a while. This is a great machine, by the way. God, this M2 Max is phenomenal. But I wanted to rock and roll this setup, and it worked amazingly well. So with that said, let's talk about the new announcement, the Mac Studio M4 Max, and how it kind of equates in terms of price point and specs on this, because this is where it gets interesting. We're going to go to the desktop right now. So if I look at a Mac Mini, and I want to configure this up to be comparable, right? We are in the M4 chipset here. We're doing the 14-core CPU, 20-core GPU like I've got here. Now, I'm not doing 64 gigabytes of unified memory. I'm just going to bring it down to 48 because the baseline for this is 36, 48. We're kind of in the same ballpark. Another benefit to the M4 Pro, by the way, is faster unified memory and faster storage. So that's going to give you a better experience overall, especially when you're doing more intensive projects versus the M4. But again, you're paying a premium for it, so you're going to get better performance, right? So with this price point, 14-core CPU, 20-core GPU, 48 gigabytes unified memory, 1 terabyte of storage, I think is a really good base point here. We're looking at a price of $2,199. Now, let's go to the baseline configuration of the Mac Studio M4 Max, right? 14-core CPU, 32-core GPU, 16-core neural engine, same as the M4 Pro, right? We're going 36 gigabytes of unified memory because that's the base configuration. 1 terabyte of storage for $2,199. Wow. Wow. That's a hell of a product for that price. That's wow. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, you're good. 36 gigabytes unified memory is going to be fine for most people out there. Now, obviously, when you get into, more intensive stuff, you want more unified memory. 64 is great. 128 is fantastic. And obviously, you can just beef this bad boy up when you go to the M3 Ultra to 512, which is mind-blowing, right? Maybe I'll get to review that, who knows? But if I do, I'll be testing that bad boy out. But yeah, that makes it very, very interesting. Now, let's go here. Let's max out this Mac Mini here, like I've got here. 64 gigabytes unified memory, 4 terabytes of storage. You can go 8 terabytes if you want to do that as well, but it's an extra $1,200. I don't think you need to do that. And you are looking at $3,399, as I mentioned earlier. Now, for a similar situation here, we can go, okay, this is what you to do. You can't bump up the memory. You have to go to the next chipset here, which is 16-core CPU on the Mac Studio here. 16-core CPU, 40-core GPU, 16-core neural engine. Then you can go up to 120 gigabytes unified memory or 64 gigabytes unified memory. Let's use 64 to match it, right? 1 terabyte of storage, $2,899. Think about that for a second. You are saving yourself, what, $300-400 for a Mac Studio? Which one would you go for? Let's think about that. What are the pros? More ports. There's a ton of ports on the back of this bad boy here. It's gonna have Thunderbolt 5, same like this. Got Thunderbolt 4. You got your USB-C ports on the front here. You got a card slot, which this doesn't have, by the way. You've got a lot in this machine. And when I had this hooked up, I mean, it saved me a lot of space on my desk because I don't have to have the wonky dock in the back there. I don't need to have this data matrix there because I've got all the ports I need right here pretty much, and I'm ready to go. So I'd love to hear from you guys on this because my advice would be, what do you need and buy accordingly? But the most important thing to understand, as I mentioned earlier in this video, is do not buy for today, buy for tomorrow. We are in a very interesting time with our personal computing devices. The emergence of AI and how these programs are using AI and the power they need to use these programs means that our products that we're getting today, not like, a few years ago, we could have a laptop or a computer for 3, 4, 5 years and we could get through it. But now with all this AI coming into play and how much power it needs to perform, sooner or later, the lifespan's going to change until we could get this base configuration back again. I think Apple's done a really good job of pricing these quite competitively for what they're doing, so I applaud them for that. But I would say, don't go baseline for any machine that you get. This, except for the Mac Studio, I think are pretty good. But 32 gigabytes unified memory, if you get into the Studio range, you probably need a little bit more. I would probably go 64 just to be safe. But even then, I mean, yeah, you want to configure correctly. So if you're going to get a Mac Mini, let's go to that real quick here. I would say this. I would do the 20-core GPU, keep that there. You could do 48 gigabytes of unified memory. I think you're good on that, and 1 terabyte of storage. And that's going to bring you around $21.99. That's a nice configuration for a very pro setup for this. Again, I know you're probably thinking, but I want to go M4. What do I do for that? Let's go to the M4. Let's figure that one out right now, right? M4, I would say this. This is my recommendation for you. I would go, if you go for the $999 version, you got 24 gigabytes unified memory, which is enough for most people out there. You could do 1 terabyte of storage, I think is where you should be at for any personal computing devices, 1 terabyte. You can always buy more storage, but the storage built into your device is always gonna be faster than what you have externally, most of the time, okay? 1 terabyte of storage and you're at $1,199. So if you wanna stay in the M4 variant for $1,200, this is a really good machine, and this is gonna future-proof you, I believe, much more so than going baseline $600. The only time you're gonna do something like that is if all you're gonna do is go on the web, answer emails, Gmail, Outlook, you're doing Microsoft Word or using Pages or Keynote, and that's pretty much it. Your world revolves around being on the web and you're not really doing much photo editing and video editing. You could still do it, but you don't have a lot of storage to place the files in. Then go for the base model, you could do that. But I would say for future-proofing, spec it up a little bit. Anyway, guys, we could go back and forth. There's a million configurations for this, but I just gotta say, to wrap it up, this is an amazing machine to have. And I will tell you, this is more than enough for most people out there, especially in this configuration. But again, what Apple's done with this and the power they put into this is unreal. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, more content on the way. Thank you for the support, and I'll chat to you all very, very soon. Take care.